My name is Christy Busby, and you are about to listen to the next episode of my podcast called F.A.T.E, From Atheism to Enlightenment. So come on in, join me. We're going to talk about it all, from atheism to enlightenment. Alrighty, guys, here we go. Get ready, and welcome to your F.A.T.E. Hey, everybody. On this episode of F.A.T.E, From Atheism to Enlightenment, I'm going to be bringing on my real sister, and we're going to be talking all things energy healing and religion and our dynamics of all of it. It's going to be a really interesting discussion. I'm very excited to have her on. I'm going to bring her on right now.
Hey there.
Coming to you all the way from Ohio. How you doing? Everything good?
Everything's great. It's almost Christmas. Life is
It
good.
is almost Christmas. It is. So I
It
thought
is.
it would be really important to bring you on and do an interview with you because we have had a very interesting upbringing. We've had a very interesting dynamic growing up. We started out like super, super close. And then over the years, our relationship changed and morphed. And now I feel like we're heading into a new paradigm in a way. I feel like our relationship is kind of blossoming into a new stage. We're older now.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I feel that you've changed and come my way a little bit, and I've changed and come your way a little bit. And, I feel like we're starting to meet in the middle more than we've had in probably decades, I would think. Don't you?
Oh, yeah, I do.
What is I'm curious actually, and this could be a little bit therapeutic, but like I am
Oh, boy.
curious about your perspective on our relationship over the years, because I know you and I have very different perspectives.
We do. We do. I would say that we have not always agreed on things.
Yeah.
A lot of different perspectives. And I think good, bad, or ugly, we both are very opinionated and strong in our opinions. And so I like to think that as we've gotten a little bit older, that's softened a little bit. But I also think that over time and over aging and experience, your opinions also change, right? Like we're not the same people we were when we were 20, 25, even 30, even 40. We've changed a lot over the years, what we believe about things and how we look at things. And so it can't help but change the relationship as well, as
I
you
mean,
grow.
I personally don't feel that I would had a significant shift in my beliefs, because I'm proud atheist here my whole life. Like I've never believed in religion, and just for the audience out there, my sister grew up, well, I mean, our parents took us to church when we were young. I had to go
Mhm.
to church like 3 times a week. Never stuck, and never I never felt anything in church of any value. That I never left feeling anything other than, can we go now? Are we done yet?
Mhm.
Although I did love the singing part of church. Ring out, merrily
Mhm.
ring the news, speed it away. Like I remember the songs.
Mhm. Interestingly, I didn't really feel anything growing up in church really either. And in fact, from the time I became an adult, 18, 19, I didn't find my way back to church until I was like 29 or 30. So that whole time, my 20s, I wasn't involved in the church. And then a lot of stuff happened. Our parents divorced, and we call it the flood, biblical reference.
How
Um,
ironic.
I know, right? And found my way back to the church at that point, which was, I feel like a lot different than the church that we grew up in. Although it was the same denomination, it was different. But
And do you want
that's
to
not
talk
really where I
about
am anymore
what our
either.
denomination is?
Yeah, sure. We were raised Church of Christ, instrumental music. I mean, it's important to clarify because there's a huge spectrum. My husband and I have moved quite a few times for his job, and every time we would move to a new area, we would try to find a new church. And, there would be some differences between, there's definitely a spectrum, but I would say it's very conservative, pretty fundamentalist upbringing. And yeah, that was kind of, I will say this, the church that we were raised in, I never remember them talking about grace ever. Like, I do not remember a single lesson, sermon, conversation about grace. I didn't hear it until I was like 30 years old.
What do you mean by grace? What do you mean a conversation about forgiveness, or what do you mean by a
Yeah.
conversation about?
Um, with the grace of
Oh,
God, that we are have this opportunity, and it involves mercy and forgiveness and all these other things, but we didn't really talk about that much. There was a lot of fire and
well, our
brimstone.
grandmother, I feel like Mamie Gentry, Southern as you can get. I feel like religion actually was a detriment to her, to our mother. I feel like our mother was a product of growing up in hellfire brimstone. I don't think it
Mhm,
mentally supported what she needed. I feel like our grandmother, who I personally never was close to, primarily I feel like because of religion in a weird way. Wouldn't you agree in a way
mhm.
religion was
Yeah,
a
I would.
cudgel almost in our home? It was like something we had to do, but it was not something, it was almost out of sheer obligation rather than a joy for doing it. Like mom felt
Mhm,
obligated more than mom felt
100%.
any kind of real kind of
Mhm.
religious inspiration or connection to a
Yep,
higher purpose or a higher self. She felt very obligated and pressured and judged. I mean, there's a
right.
lot of judgment in the church, hand pecking, judgy, self-righteous. Sorry, all the things that I'm
Well,
not I'm
they're
not
not
I'm
all
not a
like
big
that.
fan of.
They're not all like that, but yeah, what we grew up in was, and that's kind of where the difference between grace and this fear-based
Yeah.
religion, which is, now I'm a certified traditional naturopath. I've studied a lot about emotions, and I see in my clients, especially a lot that come from really devout backgrounds, that are coming and releasing emotions of unworthy, worthless, unworthy, worthless, unworthy over and over and you think, how can we possibly, but they're still in that
Yeah.
arena.
Well,
Um,
why don't we stop there, rewind, and why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey from, because you've had a religious arc too. I think that you
yeah.
used to be, I mean, n- we're putting it all out here, folks. Like Amy and I don't talk like this all the time. So this is going to be like a delicate little dance we're doing right now. I mean, I feel that you spent many years in that category that I would consider of being very religious, very conservative, and very self-righteous yourself for many years. And I think that
Mhm.
it, me being the atheist that I was, and I was never shy about it. I was always very upfront,
Right.
like that shit's not what I believe in, and get that away from me, kind of attitude, which does not align with who you were, obviously. And I do think it put
Mhm.
a barrier between you and I that was not surmountable for many, many, many years. Particularly before I got sick, things started to change for me drastically when I got sick and things, my life fell apart. But let's talk about your transition from kind of having very rigid belief system about the Bible and what it was and all of that nugget, and then kind of finding your way. Like, I'm not even exactly sure how you got into energy medicine and energy healing, but why don't you tell people what you do now, how you got there, and how it's kind of transformed your overall feelings about organized religion and what it has to offer today?
Well, I had some health issues around 2012, and not super serious, but they caused me to kind of stop and pause, reflect. Um, Simultaneously, along this about the same time, started thinking about. I was a homeschooling mom at the time. My children were still pretty young, but I started thinking about what my next chapter was going to look like, and talked to my husband about it. You can do whatever you want to do. If you want to go back to being a music teacher like you did before or do something else. And I was very, very interested in holistic health and at that point in time. That's when it first began. And I was a little bit older as a mom. My kids were younger. And I was like, I really want to be around and healthy and vibrant as long as I possibly can. So I started studying this. Part of that included, of course, nutrition and movement, but also spirituality from the sense of your energetic field and the importance of community. And so I started doing additional certifications and studying this and studying that. And I would go to these events and there would be this spectrum of people, right? Um, Most of them were not from the conservative Christian background, although some were. But then you would get to the other extreme, which were what considered at the time just, I couldn't wrap my head around what they were talking about, what they thought about energy and about the human body and about spirituality and um, coming from that conservative background, you know, part of there are several things that come in that package. You've got the hellfire and brimstone for a lot of people, the fear-based um religion, but you also have this sense of community. It's like this double-edged sword. So it's like this fear of stepping outside of the community and not being accepted in the
It's tribal,
community. Um
very tribal.
Very
Yeah.
much so, which is normal, and we are
We
pack
are
animals, I
with
know this.
tribal,
So,
we're tribal.
yes. So there are so many different aspects of this issue. So I start coming in contact with these people and, I would talk with my friends. I would say, I feel like I have my leg, right, one foot in one area and one foot in one world and one foot in the other. Because the more I learned and the more I experienced things about energy and spirituality, and the more I started to morph.
Yes.
Oh, and then, of course, there were a lot of other things that happened in my life. We have time to go into all of them, but I really started to deconstruct my faith, which I don't know if that's a term that you're familiar with or not, but um, it comes about when people have this cognitive dissonance of what they've always been taught to believe in this, this very small group. And they start to look outward and they start to see the things that are upsetting, they're discordant.
They don't
They don't jive.
align.
And so then you start questioning things, right? Patriarchy, like, the LGBTQ community, racism, when you got people talking about banning books and I mean, it's just, you're losing your mind. And so at the same time, and I'm just reading, I'm devouring all of this information and figuring out like, and at that point, now this is years later, I'm studying, we've come to the point of the COVID
Mm.
pandemic. And so now people aren't really going to church. So we're watching church online. And when it came time to come back, to go back into the churches, when the pandemic was over and people were rejoining their lives, my husband and I realized we didn't want to go back to what had been doing before. And this was not an easy process. This was painful and it was confusing and there was a lot of anger because you're raised in this idea that our way is right, no other way
Yeah.
is right. This is it. And if you venture, you're lost,
Yeah.
you're excluded.
Or even worse,
So there was a
it
lot
it
of
it
that.
almost feels like if you have a different perspective that does not align with somebody who's deeply religious, their core values, then they almost look at you like you are evil almost, that you are
That
that you
that's
are
accurate.
evil person and that you're going to hell and
Mhm.
they shouldn't listen to you because the devil is trying to pull them away from God. And it becomes very, at the end of the day, I'll probably say this a million times on this podcast. People can only meet you where they're at. So it's like there's nothing really you can do to reach somebody
Right.
who feels that way. Everybody has to experience change within themselves at their own pace under their own circumstances. I certainly never wouldn't have changed or had any kind of transformation unless I had gone through what I went through. And that was my journey uh, from
Sure.
atheism to understanding that there is much more going on in our reality than what we have been taught. That I feel like we are
Yeah.
missing a piece of our history that we have not been taught. And I
Mhm.
personally feel that organized religion particularly is not here to uh bring us together in a peaceful way. I feel like organized religion is yet another way to distract us and break us up into our little groups. Because if you're Jewish or if you're a Muslim or if you're Christian, even in Christianity, we can't get it together and have one denomination. There's the Catholic Church, there's
Mhm.
Protestants, there's Lutherans, there's Church of Christ, there's
Yeah, there's
yeah,
45,000 there's
there's just
45,000 yeah, it's like
there's Mormonism.
but
There's just so many different
yeah.
variations that believe their things that make them what they are. The current
Mhm.
like I still don't believe in, let's say, a daddy in the sky that's going to judge me when I die, and if I don't do what he said or worship him, or I did wrong things, that I'm going to go to a place of where I'm going to burn forever. I don't think that. I feel like religion almost puts you in a state of permanent childlike behavior because you're constantly looking for your sky daddy to help you, to guide you. And it really takes any real responsibility away from an adult human because if you can just, oh, I was bad today, I'm going to apologize to God and he's going to forgive me and we're going to roll on. And people can walk around and do all kinds of toe curling things. And as long as they
Yeah, I mean,
say, "I'm
I
sorry,"
don't
they get to go into heaven, you
okay,
know?
well, I
Po
don't
po po
I agree with some of the stuff that you
Sure,
said, but
of
not all of
course
it.
not.
Like, well, for one thing, I don't think it's accurate to type all religion the same way
I agree.
because there's definitely a lot of difference. Like
I agree.
now we attend a Lutheran church and I absolutely love it. I said to our other sister just yesterday or the day before, I said, I can't imagine how different things would have been for our family if we had grown up in this type of a church setting.
Mm,
Um, it's just, it's just, I love it. But everyone, it's interesting that you talk about the level of like a
it
childlike,
is.
because there's a really, really great book by a person named Brian McLaren, great author, but it's called Faith After Doubt. And he has his own little construct of layers or levels of understanding. Your first level is basically you do everything that you're told to do. That's the first level. And the second level is kind of where the majority of, I would argue, evangelical churches in the United States are. And basically it's you surround yourself with people that reinforce the same things you believe, and you're not very open to other things, and you're not exactly just believing what you're told, but you're surrounding stuff that kind of reinforces it. And then the third layer is questioning, which people are oftentimes told when they question anything about religion that they have weak faith, that they're slipping away, that they're backsliding. Like there's all of these derogatory phrases that make you feel like you're wrong, shame you, instead of just being like, hey, let's have a conversation about that. Maybe we just don't
Well,
know.
this
And then the fourth level is like
well,
enlightenment.
the this whole
So,
podcast is the goal is to just have intelligent conversations and talk about
yeah,
different perspectives, possibilities, and ways of looking at life with it doesn't need to be so serious. It doesn't need to be such a devastating thought to think that maybe we don't have it all figured out. Maybe the Bible is a lot more about
absolutely.
metaphor than it is about literal.
100%.
Jesus never had a church. He never had a religion. As far as I'm concerned, all of the religion organized stuff is man made. And it was not set up to be something that was going to bring peace and deep thought and love. If you really want to get,
Well,
if
see,
you
now
really,
there,
hold on.
I
If you, no,
disagree because
my,
Jesus was very much
well,
about love.
I'm not talking about, I'm talking about man. The reason why
Yeah.
Christianity spread across everywhere is because of the Crusades. They beat the shit out of people and hung them, and they did terrible things. You either believe
100%.
in us or you are going to die. People were pagans and
Right.
druids and they believed in nature. We were much more aligned with the equinox and the stars and communing with nature and other spirits. We were much more of that ilk before Christianity and the Crusades came along and killed off a lot of the people that believed other than what the church had to offer. But the church and the state really came in and laid their heavy hand down that this is going to be the law of the land. And even though there's a separation of church and state here, even in today's 2023 arena, there is a large group of people in the States that would very much not mind a theocracy in this country. And that to me is scary because I
I
don't
agree.
believe that any book has it all figured out. I believe that we still should be asking questions. We should not have so strong of a belief in something that we are not willing to open our minds and entertain the thought of other possibilities. I certainly feel that if people had the ability to have conversations like this more, and without there being
Mhm.
such a childhood hang up that I shouldn't be doing this, this is bad, I'm gonna lose my tribe, I'm gonna get kicked out. And quite frankly, I'm lucky I grew up in the family I did where I didn't get kicked out. Even though you are coming from a different perspective as far as you're very much more heavily based in the Bible, the religion, but you have that energy compartment that I think is kind of making your religious beliefs less stringent and and less rigid, I should say.
Mhm.
I'm coming from a perspective like I kind of feel like we are bodies of light living in a meat bag. I believe we all sign up to come here for a sole purpose. And I think that our society pretty much beats it out of us through our schooling and
Mhm.
through what we're exposed to on the TV and all this kind of stuff. And I feel like it's more about energy and manifestation and meditation and much less about one religion or praying to one God. I feel like it is more universal. God is the energy that allows all of this to happen. I don't feel like it's a person that is judging you. I believe it is an energy that allows all of these things to happen within our reality. And that means all of reality beyond our planet. There's a whole universe out there that humans don't even really talk about, but it exists. And there's energy out there and there's dark matter. And when you
Mhm.
start talking about quantum mechanics and the science behind all that, it's really
Mhm.
undeniable, but there's much more going on than our vision can see. Like we can only see a certain
Right.
spectrum. There's much more beyond that
Right.
spectrum that is happening around us all the
Yeah.
time that we don't acknowledge or pay attention to. But when you do start acknowledging it and paying attention to it, it does speak back to you. If you start seeking,
Of
it's going
course.
to find you. And that is the situation that I found myself in. I started seeking, you know, and
Mhm.
I feel being on a healing journey and going through a healing crisis and having to seek good health, you can't but journey into spirituality and journey into energy medicine and journey into that
Yeah.
side of the world, because that is where you're going to find your healing. Your healing is much more about your emotions, your thoughts, your beliefs than it is about any tumor or any virus or any bacteria. It is about whole health, what you put in your mouth, what you're saying to yourself, what you're still holding on to from 10 years ago. It is about much more of
Mhm.
energy, clearing energy than it is about the biological materialism of the body mechanics. Wouldn't you think?
Well, I definitely think the biological, it's more like the biological aspects of our body are heavily
Yes.
influenced by
Correct.
those
I
things.
agree.
There's a great book out there by Candace Pert called The Molecules of
Mm.
Emotion. Okay. know lots of people that I've come in contact to throughout my life with who've had cancer. And there is the physical um, impact of, like you said, what you eat, how you manage your stress, things that create inflammation in your body, which when it's left unchecked, it can turn
Sure.
to cancer. But there's also these emotional issues um, that are causes of it. And unfortunately, in Western medicine, we don't talk a lot about that. So when you say something, people look at you like you're crazy. But there has, if you think about it logically, there has to be more to it than just like there's not a cancer fairy that goes around and says, hey, you get cancer and you get no, there's a reason. It is not just random chance. So what about your life needs to change to get you into a place where you resonate with health? Like if you're ill, it's because you're not resonating as high as you
That's
should
right.
be. Because if you're resonating high enough, you can't be sick. So, and I do feel, it's interesting. I'm reading, like I said, lots of different books. Some people call it God, some people call it spirit, some people call it universe. We are all
Yes.
connected. It's been proven through, it's another thing we don't talk about. So it is to our advantage to make efforts to recognize those connections that we have with everyone. And I feel that there's a lot of good things that happen in relation to religion or being caring for others and the pursuit of love of not just of ourselves, but turning outward and loving others and caring for others and taking care of people who are marginalized and getting out of this mentality of scarcity and that there's enough that we can share. And
I agree.
but it's been used for power
Money.
and control for so long, and it's just like but I read an article. I'm actually familiar with this new group. It's called the Post Evangelical Christians, and I actually attended one of their meetings this year. And the parts that we're talking about that are so disconcerting and so upsetting, we're not
Oh, no.
alone. There's a huge movement of people who are saying, as the religion or conservative religion in particular has sort of joined itself with the conservative politics, people are like, whoa, this is not the way this should be going. And so it gives me hope that a lot of people are stepping out of that and that are stepping away from that controlled
Yeah.
environment. So I have hope that we can.
I don't feel that organized religion needs to be organized. I don't. I feel like if you want to get together and
But
spread
it
good
is through
vibes.
organization that a lot of amazing things get done. Like, and there is that sense
Yeah,
of,
but I don't think the Vatican needs to exist as it is today. Like I that to me is like
yeah,
nuts.
well, that's so that you're talking about the structure, like the governing body.
And
And I
I
think
also
it's,
think if it is going to continue to exist, we should tax them. Why do we have
oh,
churches
yeah,
with like
no, I agree.
3,000 arenas sitting with jumbotrons that fly in helicopters and own like I don't even
Yeah,
understand what that
100%.
is.
No.
Who is watching that? Like what? It's a spectacle. It's ridiculous and it makes me
Well, it's
sad.
entertainment.
Well, people really
Yeah.
they live and die by some of these evangelical churches or people on TV that get on. I feel there's so many people that feel powerless, they feel lost, they feel desperate and they are looking for anything to help them. And there is just a monstrosity of people out there taking advantage of just that very thing.
I agree. 100%.
And let's face it, no offense to anybody out there at all, but there's no shortage of unintelligent people in the world. There just is no shortage of them. If you're not born in the right town with the right kind of money, with the right kind of support from parents who love you, you're probably not going to be able to grow up and make sound decisions and be somebody that even has the ability to think properly, correctly, and critically.
I know a lot. I know a lot of wealthy people in conservative Christian circles, but they're benefiting. Um, so it's not necessarily always tied to a lack of opportunity
Oh,
or
no,
wealth
no. I
or
didn't think that at all. I think that
um,
there has been a decline in people's capacity to have critical thinking skills over the last 40 years.
yeah. Well, part of it is the
That's what I
schools
was
as
gonna
well,
say,
because
degradation.
we
Yep,
got away from teaching people how to
yep.
think, and we just told them, read this, regurgitate it. Like, when we started teaching to the test, consume this piece of information, and now turn around and tell me what you just read. Instead of saying, okay, read this book or this novel or this paper, and what does it make you think? Why do you think that? Is are these ideas worthy ideas? Why or why not? You know, learning about logical fallacies. Learning to me, the hugest thing. I homeschooled the girls and they did a lot. There were a lot about the program that maybe was not my favorite, but one thing that I was very happy with is they took logic and they learned how to recognize a poor argument. We would put on the presidential, debates, and they'd be like, "Well, that's a this fallacy, or that's that fallacy, or that's not a good argument," or and I'm like, "Yeah, but people don't know enough to recognize poor information when they see it. That's that's a big
It's a huge
problem."
I feel like in today's society, we are not even consciously living anymore. We are just being strung between one emotional reaction to the next. You're either on your phone going, "That sucks. I hate that. I love that. Look at that." There's
Mhm.
no real conscious thought behind anything. We are just having emotional reactions, especially when you're on your phone, people are scrolling. There's no real thought. It's
Such a waste of
mindless.
time.
Mindless just having
Waste
emotional
of time.
reactions to one thing to the next without actually consciously thinking. You're basically allowing whoever's on the other side of that device, whether it's a TV or a screen,
Fill your
to
mind.
pre-program your ass. That is what you're doing. I've been in the
Yeah.
film and TV industry for 20 years and I can give everybody this advice. I don't care if you're watching a movie screen, a computer screen, or television screen. If you are not filtering everything with what are they trying to get me to think, feel, say, or do with whatever you're allowing to penetrate your eyeballs and your
Come
brain.
in.
If you don't have a filter on thinking as that is playing in front of your screen, your face, you are allowing somebody else to hijack your emotions, your mental state, and your thoughts and your belief system. You have to actually think, what is this trying to get me to think, feel, say, or do? And it could be anything from like watching a pizza commercial and, oh, I'm hungry for pizza, to watching something on TV and having it be political or having it be religious or having it be something that is not necessarily good for society, good for humanity, but potentially you would believe something that you otherwise would never have believed if you weren't just being more
Considered.
conscious when you're walking in the world. I am very much more conscious of how I feel, what I'm thinking, what I'm saying. And I think I lived unconsciously for the better part of my life. I was having a really good time though. Had a very good time. I
You
did.
did.
I really had a good time. I'd love to go back to that shit if I could. But I
Really?
mean,
Oh,
I
wow.
do miss, before I got sick, I mean, what was there not to like about my life? I was working on movies, I was playing hard, I was working hard, I was traveling to different places, meeting fascinating people, not really thinking about much. There wasn't a drink or a cigarette that I didn't love. I was like, "Oh, a beer? A
I know.
beer, thanks. Oh, it's smoke?
Same
I'll take
thing.
yes, yes." Like, I was having a great time, but I was not consciously enjoying it, I don't think. I was just here for the party and whatever came next. It's always a mystery.
Yeah, it's true.
I was
That's
always
true.
like, okay, what's next? What else can I get into? Oh, but
Yeah.
we all have to go through certain things in life, and I now can look
Absolutely.
back and say that I truly think that I was supposed to get sick, is devastating and horrifying and hard as it was, and for the most a lot of it, I suffered in silence, for a lot of it. I'm not somebody that's going to call you when I'm at my worst. I was supposed to go through that. Okay, so what else? Why don't you tell folks, like, what your mission now in your business, what you see coming up for yourself? How can people reach out to you? What can you do for people? Because even though you live in Ohio, you can do much of what you do remotely. You don't have
I
to.
do. I have a lot of clients that are not in
Yeah.
Ohio area.
So
So I have a business called Empowered for Wellness, and the reason I named it Empowered for Wellness is because it's very, very important to me to. I'm an educator at heart, so it's very, very important to me to educate people on how they can make choices that best allow their body to be healthy. Like when you're healthy, you feel good. When you people want to be vibrant. They want to feel happy when they get up in the morning. My big focus, honestly, is joy. Like I've started talking about that. I'm thinking about writing a book about it actually. Finding what brings you
mm,
joy. Because when you talk about every people are missing something, they're like they're so over what they're looking for something, they're looking for something, they're looking for joy and contentment and they don't have any idea where to find it. And then they get online and they're scrolling and they're looking at all these other people supposedly being joyful and happy and
right.
content, or at least they have a very good social media manager. And they think, why don't I have that? Why don't I have this? Why don't I have that? Well, and it's gonna be different for everyone. Like, for me, it's being involved in and we've talked about this in musical theater, whether I'm directing or whether I'm performing, I love it. The joy that I feel when you do something that you love permeates the rest of your life. It improves your relationships. Is it gonna mean that you never have anything bad happen to you in life? Of course not. Like, bad things happen, but you're more resilient when you're not so rubbed raw by life when you have a spark inside of you that says, yeah, this is hard. I can get through it. There's some balance to your life. There's something bad that happens, but you've got some joy. And part of that is figuring out what brings you joy. But part of it is also dealing with the stuff that you have underneath that is maybe standing in the way of you fully experiencing the joy.
Okay.
So I do nutritional counseling with people. I do a lot of emotional work. So I do something called emotion code, where we
Mhm.
release trapped emotions using muscle response testing and magnet. The great thing about your body is it knows the difference between true and false, and it
Positive and negative.
can communicate with us if you use it. It's amazing. And your body wants you to be healthy. Your body wants you to be happy and vibrant. Your body is self healing. We get in the way of that so many times. I mean, something as simple as you get a fever and you take a fever reducer. Instead of stopping and saying, gosh, why do I have a fever? Well, you have a fever because that's your body's defense saying, I'm going to heat up so I can destroy the bacteria in this body. And we suppress the body's ability
To do
to,
that.
to do that. Or a cough
Yeah.
suppressant. Why do we cough? You cough because your body's trying to get rid of something. And when you don't allow it to do, your body's so brilliant and it's so good at taking care of you, but we have to learn to listen to it and we have to take care of it. And we have to eliminate the mountain of toxins that we encounter every single day.
Tox
And you're not going to
toxins
eliminate
Yeah,
all of it.
toxins are a huge
They're
thing. They
huge.
they really are.
They're huge.
I truly believe that many of the mystery illnesses that people have these days, whether you wanna categorize it as chronic fatigue or
Autoimmune.
autoimmune
Yeah.
disorder, a lot of that is heavy metal toxicity. It is toxins
Yep.
we're ingesting with our food, it's
Parasite.
parasites, and we are just living in such a polluted, toxic environment now that excuse me,
Right.
it is almost impossible for your body to function normally because it's just being inundated with toxicity.
It's true. It's true. And so, but there are things that we can do, but people don't
Right,
know. People don't know because they think if you walk into a grocery store and you see it on a shelf, it must
right.
be safe. I can barely walk down the aisle with all of the detergents and things on it,
The
the
smell. Yeah.
fragrance, and I mean, it literally makes tears run down it because I've been away from it
Yeah.
for so long. And there's so many things, and so I just work with people and do all those things. The people that are close that live near me, I do energy work, which is great, like the hands-on clearing chakras and working on meridians, making sure your energy is moving forward and not backwards. Is it crossing your body like it's
Yeah.
supposed to? Do you have stagnant areas? So there are all these different things that people just don't even know
Exist.
exist. Like, and once it's so funny, someone gets on my table and I work on it for an hour and they get up and they're like, I feel amazing. I'm like, yeah, because just because your body is now working the
It was
way
meant to.
God intended it, the universe, spirit, the way it was supposed to function. And so those are the kind of things I do and work with people and just trying to open people's eyes that there is hope out there. You can make your life whatever you want it to be, but it's so much about vibration
Mhm.
and it's so much about
Mhm.
resonance and you attract what you resonate, what you believe,
You
what you
do.
feel. Words matter, thoughts matter. Um,
I firmly believe,
Negative
yes,
self-talk is terrible,
100%. If you have somebody in your head
self-limiting.
talking to you, telling you you're not worthy, you're not good enough, you need to figure out a way to shut that down. A lot of that, inner child work. A lot of people need to
Absolutely. I'm
address
doing
inner
a lot of it
child
right
work.
now.
That's important. There's just Western medicine is not the answer for 90% of the stuff that ails us in today's society. I think Western medicine is great if you need a heart transplant, if you get a
Yeah, if you get in a
broken
car
arm,
accident,
but if
yeah.
you have
But even a broken arm, you really just need someone to
yes,
set it, and
it
then the
will
arm
heal.
heals.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
so, like, you need walk alongside the body and let I had a person I was talking to the other day said they had a test and something showed up on their test. They went to an ENT and the ENT said, "Well, are you having any symptoms?" And they said, "No." And he said, "Well, then don't come back until you're having symptoms." And I was like, "What?" Like, have you so what statement, and I know this isn't everyone, but this just particular instance, this particular doctor, basically, if you don't have a symptom, they don't know what to do with you. If they can't like band-aid that symptom, they don't know how, well, hey, there's what I'm thinking in my mind, thank goodness you found this so early, whatever this is, let's figure it out and take care of it. No, it's not causing symptoms yet, so let's not worry about it. I'm
I
like,
mean, at the
that's
end of the
great.
day, that is how Western medicine is set up now. That is all they have are
That's how it makes money.
pharmaceuticals. That's it. I'm like, we're not supposed
I
to
know. I know.
be taking oil-based pharmaceuticals for the vast majority of the stuff that ails us. I mean, that's just not the answer.
And certainly not in
Exactly.
perpetuity. Like, okay, go on this and you're gonna have to take it for the rest of your life.
Exactly.
What? No, your body, it may take some work. I'm not even saying it's gonna be how long were you sick before you finally got on the other side of that? And you tried
Oh
so
god,
many
yeah.
things.
So
But if
extra.
you had just gone to the Western medicine, they basically would have said, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do.
I feel better
Well,
than I have felt in over a decade. I look better than I have looked in over a decade. I feel strong. I don't consider myself a sick person anymore. So, if you had to, how do you feel like I have changed? Because I feel I'm transforming. I feel I'm different. I feel that my personality has changed even. Like, I'm just a more serious person.
I don't think you can go through that kind of experience and not be a
Yeah,
changed person
I
on the other
agree.
side.
I agree. It
I think you have a greater appreciation for
I
your
do.
health.
I'm
Um, and I've watched it over time because I mean, honestly, at first you were very angry about having to make some
mhm,
changes. Um, I think before this you felt invincible.
100%. Of course.
Um, and I
I
think,
still am.
well, ironically, you are more invincible now than you were
I do
then.
feel stronger than I ever have.
I believe that. I believe you are 100% more invincible now than
Mhm.
you were then. I believe if you would have continued like that, your life would have been a lot
I agree.
shorter.
I agree.
Yeah. And I believe now people say, "Oh, you're getting old," and they have this expectation you're just gonna like shrivel up. Look around. Look at like other countries. They don't do that. I mean, we're inundated with
That's all in our head.
we have to make that, and we have to make better choices. We have to make better choices. So I would say that you are more serious in some ways, but in other ways, you're more lighthearted. Like I think it's easier to be closer to you, that there's a softness about you that you didn't have necessarily
I agree. And
before. Right.
like my friends have changed too. A lot of people have just fallen out of my life over the last decade.
Mhm.
And probably that is because my lifestyle has changed so much and who I
Sure.
am has changed so much that you start vibrating differently. Different people are going to start coming into your aura and people that are no longer
Right.
you align with are going to fall
It's
away.
right.
And a lot of that
Well,
has
it
been
goes back to what
happening.
you said earlier. Journey. Everyone's on
Yes.
their own journey. I try to have a level of grace and patience with people who come from that background that I came out of, because once upon a time, that's where I was. And right, it's pretty hypocritical of me to say, like, well, I've changed now. You all are, need to change right now as well. Like, so you have to give people um, grace and the ability to just say, look, you are where you are in your journey. I am where I am on my journey. I wish us both well on our journeys. And maybe our paths will cross. We will align more closely in the future. But at the end of the day, if there are people that we don't align with, we have a choice to either someone is in training or moving their resonance. Either they're going to resonate up to you or you're going to resonate down to them. Someone is going to entrain to someone else, and you just have to decide, like,
You know, I think everyone has a soul purpose. I think it's hard to figure out what your soul purpose is, especially in today's society where you are forced into being born and making as much money as you can before you die, basically.
before you
That's
die.
it. So that's the game of life. All right, ladies and gentlemen, and go. Make as much money as you can before you die. If you want to have any kind of safety, any kind of normal life, it's becoming
Mhm.
increasingly difficult to do that now. It just is. Like, I'm not sad I'm at the age I'm at. I would not want to be born at this point and try and make it. We had such a great life. We
Mhm.
grew up before the internet, like I
Right. Thank
would
God.
not
Mhm.
want
Before
before
cell
cell
phones.
phones.
Oh,
Like, I'm so
give me a
yes,
cordless phone any day.
yes. Like,
Just,
those were
yeah.
beautiful times, ladies and gentlemen. Don't think the kids these days understand how different life experience is now.
And we were bored. We were bored. Sometimes we were
It's
bored.
okay to be bored.
They're never bored now. I know. That's where you get your creative
It's
juices
where you
flowing.
really start
When you have to, like, just, yeah.
entertain yourself.
We sound old right now,
I
right?
honestly, I don't even care. Like, I fucking look great.
I know, I can't either.
Like, bring it, bitch. Oh, like, let's go. I don't think that I think aging is all in your mind. I really do. I don't feel any older than I did 10 years ago. I feel transformed. I feel different inside. But do I feel older? No. I mean, I'm still as about as adult as you get in life. Well, look, we're coming up on an hour here. So,
We
we're
are.
going to we're going to close it out. Is there anything else? What do you feel like the most impactful, memorable energy healing experience that you've had? What is the most impactful, memorable experience? It could be with a medium, with a client, with a whatever.
Okay. I would say, I mean, there's different aspects. One, with something that was really impactful was the first time I worked on you. And I don't know if it was
Interesting.
because we're related. I don't know if you remember, but you were laying on the table and I was holding your electric spots at the
Mm,
back. And I could feel your energy all the way up my arms. I have not had that with anyone as in depth and potently as I did with you. But probably the thing that affected me personally the most is I did a session with a man named Brian Eastman, who does a modality called Lift, which is life improving, internal something or other. I just call it Lift. But anyway, he helped me. It was about a year after dad
mm,
died, and I was still feeling a tremendous amount of grief. And
mm.
excuse me, you never get over that. I mean, I feel the loss of dad. I have a necklace that you got me on. At the holidays especially, I feel I miss him. Like I feel
I
he's
do. I
here.
feel he's here.
Cardinal came to Cardinal came to the window to see me yesterday and I was like, "Hey dad." But I was still feeling so pressed down by grief and he helped me release grief, the grief for dad. Now, do I still miss dad? Sure. Are there times like I'll walk into a store and there'll be music playing and it reminds me of dad and it just takes my breath. I'm like, yes. But do I have that? Like, I can't find joy. It's hard to find joy because I'm so consumed. No. And it was like that. It was like we did the session and the next day, I'm even that later that day, I was like, I mean, I felt the energetic
Shift.
shift.
Yeah.
It was a
What
shift. It was a really, really impactful
is it
shift.
quantum healing? Is that what it was? Because I've heard amazing things about quantum therapy. Um,
Well, lots of people call things
exactly,
different things.
exactly.
Like I think people's like, oh, well, you do energy work. Well, what energy work do you do? I'm like, well, when you're working in someone's energy field, that's
Energy work.
energy work. You might be, yeah, you might be working on their chakras. You might be, it could be
Yeah.
emotional. That's energy work. Um, I just got certified in homeopathy, which is it's a type of supplementation, but it's frequency and it's amazing, transformative. It's energy
I
work,
mean,
but it's a drop that
at
you
the end
take.
of the day, everything is energy and
100%.
frequency. Even our atoms are basically, if you get down to the microscopic level, there is air everywhere. We are energetic energy beings that, it's fascinating that we're even all here. I feel like the magic of being alive almost is being sucked out of us because we're never actually given the time to contemplate our own lives and how incredible the world is and us interacting with it and how magical everything is. And yet we all walk around like it's old news.
That's because our focus is out
It's
instead of
true.
like that's where you find
It's
it.
true.
It's find it.
Within.
That's how you touch it. That's how you access
Yep.
it. Right. Yeah.
Well,
Absolutely.
I cannot thank you enough for joining me, Amy. I feel like this was a very important discussion because although I am just on the brink of stepping onto my spiritual path, in a way, I also feel like I've started coming full circle with my sister in a way. You
Mhm.
and I have had although I'm ride or die for you, bitch, of course.
Of
There's
course.
no question there,
100%.
ride or die.
There's
Never.
never been a question of that, even when we
Even at
didn't see eye
worst,
to eye on things.
we've
Never
had
question.
some
Yeah. Never
bumpy
question.
rides in our past, and, we definitely don't disagree on a lot. I mean, don't agree on a lot, but we're starting to agree on a lot more, and I feel that,
Right.
oh, it was important to have you on, not only because I feel like our paths are starting to merge now more than ever, but also cathartic for
Mhm.
me to say, "Hey, even though you and I have never really discussed our relationship, it's not something that we often talk of. It is an underlying tension that has always existed within because but I was never ever
It's
going to be who you wanted me to be. And you were never ever
Mhm.
going to be who wanted you to be. You know what I'm saying? Like those were
Mhm.
two different people that were not going to. But now I feel
Mhm.
like there's some movement and that we have a much more
And we've also gotten
relaxed relationship.
to the point where we're allowing each other. I mean, no one should ever want another person to be the way. That's part of loving someone is loving who they are, and even if they're not the way we would do things or the way we might want them to be. That's really growing into maturing in our relationship. Is that no, we're not going to agree on every single thing, but that's okay.
And I think
We
that I personally felt very judged a lot of my years because you did come up in the church and you were really judgy, Amy, not only on me, but on everybody. That's not my bag. I'm more very open minded and free thinking, and I let people do whatever the fuck they want to do because it's not bothering me. And I think that you're just more accepting of people for who they are in general.
Mhm.
I feel like you're coming into your own a little bit more and you're less rigid and conservative, and
Mhm.
you're more open and flexible. But I've also been somebody who did what I want when I wanted and didn't give it really two thoughts about what anybody else thought of it or cared about it. And I don't feel like I'm that person either anymore. I think I'm much more attuned
Mhm.
to what my actions are doing to affect other people. When before I would just breeze in and be, fuck you, I'm here, no, okay, I'm out, bye. I was very like, no fucks were given on my end.
I
Yeah.
remember.
So,
Mhm.
I think you've come far. I've come far. I would love to be able to, continue to deepen our relationship and bring it back to where I feel like it should be, where we're talking more often and we're interacting more often. And I really love you. And I've always loved you, of course,
Of course, I love you
always
too.
loved you, always,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
do.
it's a journey and we're on it together. Can you do? Righty, Amy. I think we're going to leave it there. I've loved our conversation. It's
It's been great.
always fun to talk to my sister. We covered a lot of ground. I think we have a much better understanding of where each other is at. And I'd love to have you on again. Maybe we can talk about some other stuff.
Yeah, it would be my pleasure. Yeah,
There's a
absolutely.
deep well of trauma that we could talk about.
Yes, there is. Good times.
Anyways, Amy, if people want to reach out to you for any kind of healing energy, any advice, anything, how can they reach you
Mhm.
if they want to bring you on as a counsel for any kind of
Sure.
health stuff?
They can, they can email me at Amy at Empowered for Wellness. It's EMPOWERED numeral 4 wellness .com, or they could just go to the empoweredforwellness.com, which is the same thing. EMPOWERED numeral 4 wellness.com.
Empoweredforwellness.com. Look her up, guys. She's super knowledgeable,
Mhm.
super helpful, and she will get you on back track if you need to. We're going to leave it there. Stay tuned. Like and subscribe. I hope you keep watching, listening. And until next time, we'll see you then, folks. And you never know. Maybe you're listening to this podcast because it's your fate. Maybe it's your fate. I don't know. Anyway, say goodbye, Amy.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thanks,
That's a
everybody. Mhm.
cut. Alrighty, guys. That was a wrap on episode 3 of Fate. That was my sister, my real sister, Amy Prestridge. I highly encourage you to reach out to her if you are in need. She can absolutely work remotely on you. She can release your trapped emotions. She can give you a sense of calm that you have never felt before. I will leave all of her information in the show notes. So feel free to reach out to her. She's wonderful. I know I'm biased. She's my sister. I hope you enjoyed the show. I'm sure it's going to get mixed reviews. Not everyone is capable of having an open conversation about a tough topic like religion, but I felt it was important to put it out there as an example of how to have a discussion like that without getting angry or offended. Me and Amy did it right, in my opinion, and I think it's going to end up being one of my favorite episodes of the podcast, truly. I really do. I hope you enjoyed it. At the end of the day, you know, press stop or move on to the next episode. Speaking of next episodes, next week on Fate, I'm bringing you a woman named Erica Frost. She is fascinating. She was a paranormal investigator on the Queen Mary in Long Beach for a decade. She is a channeler, an intuitive. She is psychically gifted. She's had a beautiful transformational story through her own journey with a near death experience. I got to tell you, I love near death experiences. They just broaden my mind every single time I hear someone tell me their story. And I've had a couple on the podcast now. I just love them. So you'll be seeing a lot of stories of near death experiences on here. They're some of my favorite transition stories. If you want to follow the show, follow me on Insta. I have an Insta account at F.A.T.E Podcast. It's F.T.E podcast. Go ahead. You'll see clips from the show. You can DM me. Let me know what you're thinking. There is a YouTube channel called @F.A.T.E. F period, A period, T period, E period. I am on YouTube. My podcast is on YouTube. Please follow the show, rate and review it, share it. I would love to continue to do this. If you're really wanting to support the show and me and my efforts to continue to make this happen, I am on Venmo. You can send me a tip at Christy-Busby on Venmo. Feel free. Give me a little encouragement. I would love that. I hope you keep tuning in. I've got some great guests coming up for you. And with that, y'all, I'm going to leave it there. This is Christy Busby, and I love to see you next week on Fate. Welcome to your Fate, gang. I'll see you next week. Journey well.